We're going to start our panel, so if the participants would come up. Have a seat with me, although you probably would rather stay on the couch. So what we're going to discuss today is really the convergence of television and mobile, and also touch on programmatic, buying and selling a little bit. Television has changed a lot in the last 5 years, and a lot of the change has really occurred because of mobile. Mobile has done a lot of things, provided a whole new distribution platform, different screens to watch video on, as well as actually some ways of measuring television audiences. So there's a lot going on in the space. And what I'd like to do first is have the panel members introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what companies they're working for and what they do. Are you mic'd up? Yes.
Can everyone hear me? Good? All right. I'm Dan Wittmers. I'm the Director of Mobile for NBC Universal at their media agency of record, Maxus. I'm also the founder of the Mobile Leaders Alliance, which is an industry organization dedicated to continued education and career assistance for technology, media, and advertising professionals.
And Dan is the most important person here since he got the coolest microphone on the panel. Sorry.
I just think they don't trust me with things in my hands.
I'm Gabrielle Heyman. I'm National Director of Entertainment, Automotive, and CPG Brand Partnerships for Zynga. I've been in the digital space since 1998, working for a variety of companies like Electronic Arts, Yahoo, BuzzFeed. So that's me.
Cool. My name is Joe Prusz, head of mobile here at Rubicon Project. This is my 7th year here at Rubicon Project. Our goal has been to automate advertising and keep the internet free, and so we are super excited to extend this into TV going forward.
Thank you for participating. There's so much going on in the space, mobile and television, and I thought I would rely on you, Dan, to kick it off.
Well, good. I sat in the right seat.
And if you could speak to the fact that there's so much going on, it's hard for the agencies, I think, to even keep up. But is it moving so fast right now that it's hard to keep up and everyone's behind?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely moving really fast, and every brand is kind of moving at their own pace. And to be quite frank, it's good that they're doing that. You know, because one of the things that I find tends to happen too often is when they race to catch up, they forget how to learn to do the basics. And when you don't understand the basics, you're trying to build a house from the roof down, and we all know that doesn't work. Right? So you have to build in that foundation of understanding of what the platform is, how it functions, and how it interacts with everything else around you. And when you can do that, you can start to build in layers into your media plans and into your innovation structure that will take you places that you never thought you could go before. But when you try and jump in head first and you don't really know what's going on, you're going to have a lot of falters. You're going to have a lot of falls and missteps. And that's where I think some brands are playing right now, because they feel that pressure to innovate, 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 and they don't even know what they're innovating on yet.
What's happening with, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, Dan, one question in response to that. You know, we're, what, half a decade into VOD, and yet when I still watch a TV, let's say on ABC.com or NBC, sometimes I still get the same ad repeated over and over and over and over, and that's a valuable opportunity for a number of advertisers to reach me, yet I still get the same advertiser over and over. What's the problem? What's the disconnect?
Oh, to be quite frank, I really don't know where the disconnect is happening. It's definitely something that frustrates a lot of users, especially when you're on platforms like Hulu or Netflix or something like that. Well, Netflix you're paying for, so. But getting the same ad, it just creates that ad fatigue that we really try and avoid, which is one of the reasons why I talk to my clients in the sense that you're an entertainment company. You make a business out of creating. Why should you stop once the movie or the television show is done, right? You need to continue creating for that platform and for what's next in order to make sure that consumers aren't over-inundated with the same 15 or 30-second pre-roll that they're seeing on television, on digital, on mobile, and even sometimes in digital out of home, right? And it's just, it's overwhelming, and it sucks. I don't know where the disconnect is happening. I'm sure there's some challenges in the app space with frequency capping. Those have definitely gotten better, and the technology is there to do it. I think the challenge becomes, are publishers and developers really taking advantage of those new technologies that will allow them to do the things they need to?
I think a lot of what you brought up, though, Joe, is an inventory management issue sometimes. It's a combination of an advertiser's budget, the publisher's inventory, the amount of the campaign, the flight of the campaign, how sold are you, how not sold are you. So sometimes people forget about the publisher side and just inventory management.
Well, I think that goes in line with what Greg Stewart, head of the MMA, said this morning online, which was that mobile video is priced at a 50% discount compared to desktop video counterparts. There's an oversupply of mobile video, and the advertiser is still a bit delayed in getting access to that user. And so we all know where the user is going, and it's only a matter of time. But it seems like this lag is still too far and too great for the times that we live in today.
Yeah, I think the brands are having trouble putting a value on the impressions that they are garnering through mobile video. It's one of those things where they've had this big machine for the last 20, 30 years where they know if they spend X amount of dollars more on television or wherever else, they're getting something, an exact number out on the back end. And mobile's kind of broken that machine a little bit, and they're not quite sure what the outcome is going to be if they take that 10% from television or print and put it against mobile. And it's just delaying them really going investments forward,
Right. I mean, I think that part of the frequency issue is that such a small percentage of budget is spent on mobile now, but you have such high usage that there's so many impressions served that you do see, and it's obvious when you're seeing campaigns that are run by networks on a CPI basis, and they're just trying to push out as much inventory as possible. So, like when you're in the business, you kind of know what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think 40% of online video is consumed on a mobile device, yet only attracts about 3% of the revenue. So a big disconnect between too much supply and none of demand.
Well, and I think the other part of that problem too is, and I kind of joke about this a lot, but I have publishers that come in and they've got a brand new shiny deck that they want to pitch us. And it's got about 14 new slides that all have mobile devices on it. And they're really excited about the fact that 75% of their traffic is now coming from mobile. And so I give them an RFP, and when I get it back, it's 75% digital. And I turn to them and I say, well, where's the shiny new stuff you pitched me on yesterday? Right? You came in and you told me about all your traffic is on these mobile devices, yet all the inventory you're giving me for my budget is on the desktop. Why? Right? And so it's not just about us not willing to put the money there. They're not pitching it in. And that's a problem.
It's funny, I was at Fleury for a year and a half, and I remember everyone was joking, this is the year of mobile, right? And then the next year, it was this is the year of mobile. But it sounds like it is still a little bit of a challenge in terms of getting the expenditures. What needs to be done to sort of fix it? What do you think?
For me, everything starts with education. And it's not just about educating the brand. It's about educating the staff at the agency as well. A lot of times, really good ideas get cut off of a plan simply because we didn't pitch it in very well. Right? It was a great idea when we were sitting at the table and ideating, and it was a great idea when we found a company that could execute, and it was a great idea on paper when we laid it out on the media plan, and then when we presented it to the client, it was just, And I think part of that is a lot of these younger planners and soups and AMDs, they don't really know how to communicate these ideas that they're having about the mobile platform in a sense that is simple for a brand to go, yes, let's do that. It takes too much back and forth of, okay, well, I don't know the answer to that, but let me email the vendor, and he'll email the publisher, and then they'll get back to me in about 4 days, and then I'll get back to you in about 6. So once we get there, oh yeah, we're past the deadline to actually do this. So we're just going to take that off, and we'll reallocate that money to digital. It'll be fine.
I wish you worked with us more because I would make sure that never happened. Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge the challenge is still evangelizing mobile. It's, you know, it's really like desktop was 10, 15 years ago, or even cable before that. I was speaking to my friend about that earlier. The time spent versus budget spent, and, you know, even for the mobile gaming space, which is obviously my specialty, you know, if only 4% of overall budgets in advertising are spent on mobile, only 2% are spent on games, even though it makes up, you know, 20% of the time spent on mobile. So I think that's 30. It depends on the study you see, maybe. Yes.
We'll say 30.
I like that. But, you know, I think it's one of those, there's so many challenges on so many levels, so that might be the case. But then, you know, in fact, just recently we submitted an idea to a client who came back and said that, you know, mobile gaming was no longer a lifestyle pillar. But is it an audience pillar? Like, are you going to be where your consumer is? Because really that's the scale that exists.
What is a lifestyle pillar? I've never seen one.
You know, people will see, we get RFPs all the time that, you know, identify exercise, health, music, entertainment, games. Those are the type of lifestyle pillars. But the truth is that people aren't in just one. I mean, I do all of those things.
Yeah. I think part of that is, you know, and I got into a bit of a debate with someone probably about 2 years ago now, where we were at a roundtable discussion, and they called out the fact that mobile is a behavior. And it got me heated, because for me it's not a behavior, it's a lifestyle that we lead. Mobile in and of itself should be a lifestyle pillar, right? Because it's about the same people that use CNN and New York Times using Flappy Bird and Tinder, and there isn't really a grouping you can put people into. You have to understand who they are as an individual and as a person. And we've never had to do that before. We've always been able to say, all right, you guys look a lot alike, so we're going to put you over here in this bundle, and here's how we're going to talk to you. And you guys kind of do the same thing over here, so we're going to talk to you this way. And if you put 4 people up against a wall that all have the same demographics, psychographics, they look exactly alike on paper, give them one task to do on their mobile phone, and they're all going to do it different, right? Tell them to look up the closest sushi restaurant. One's going to pull open Yelp, one's going to pull open Google Maps, the other's going to open Urban Spoon. And we have to be ready for that as advertisers, to make sure that we're not in the right place at the right time, but we're in the right place all the time, because you just don't know that person's personal preference unless you're paying attention to the data.
So just to shift to a slightly different subject here, there's a ton of mobile usage going on with television viewing, right? And we talked about this. I mean, a lot of the gaming is happening in prime time. It's disruptive to television, but at the same time, it looks like it's a huge opportunity for advertisers. So how are you guys positioning that in terms of, well, television, sight, sound, emotion is very powerful. If you're reaching the same audience with mobile, you know, how can they complement each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we recently conducted a Nielsen mobile gaming study. It was just across mobile gaming in general, and certainly I believe, you know, above 70%, excuse me, of consumers are playing while they're watching prime time. And I know for Zynga, you know, people always ask, like, when do you see traffic spikes? And we really see it during big TV events. So we'll get a 20% boost of traffic during the Super Bowl or during the Oscars. So I think that there's so many ways to take advantage of that sort of behavior. You know, a lot of clients want to take advantage of galvanizing moments, like everyone's watching the Super Bowl while they're playing this game. What can we do? We've worked, even with Alphonso, we worked on a campaign earlier this year for Navy, which bought the Super Bowl on Zynga, sort of conquesting the Army, because the Army is the official armed services of the NFL. And I mean, it was a very impactful campaign, and it was short and sweet and delivered a great amount of impressions because there was a huge, audience duplication between people who were watching the Super Bowl and playing games at the same time. So that sort of, information that you're able to conquest or add frequency or close the funnel, like you just saw my ad on TV, and now I'm going to tell you another step of the story on your mobile device, was pretty impactful.
Is the behavior just increasing more and more with television viewing? And besides gaming, I mean, there are plenty of other activities that are going on in terms of apps, right? There's utility apps and social media. However, I've seen social isn't as big as gaming. Gaming is huge during television, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much social and gaming are probably the two biggest co-viewing opportunity, or second screen, I should say, opportunities. There's so many. You were kind of talking about utility. Like, there is utility on mobile. We check our weather, our stocks. Those are in and out bursts. And then there's more engagement opportunities like social or gaming. And then, I mean, the truth is then there's this whole other, category of mobile TV on mobile. And anyone who, I mean, I watch the majority of my TV on my iPad in my bedroom. Like, I refuse to get a TV for the bedroom, but I still watch it on my iPad. I don't know what that means. But, or, my kid is 5. I mean, this generation's different. Like, he's just as happy to watch content on my old iPhone 5. He could really care less if it was on a big screen or right here in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we're starting to talk to all of our network and cable clients about there is a new prime time. The new prime time is whenever you have the time. It's not about creating a destination anymore. It's about understanding that users are going to find a way to watch the content that they want, when they want, and where they want. And if you fight them on it, they will find another way. They're not going to bend to your will anymore because we've given them options. So one thing that mobile has brought into the marketing and advertising scenario that never existed before is personal preference and option, right? I get to choose. It's my choice. It's my device, right? I don't have to share the remote control with you or my fiance or anybody. I get to change the channel when I want to change the channel, right? And it's so difficult for them to wrap their minds around that they now have to build or rebuild their platforms based on that fact, and it's a struggle for them right now.
I would agree, especially broadcast, but even cable. I think that I do think television is going, just as a content vehicle, is going through a renaissance right now. Episodic content is obviously going through a renaissance. There's definite movement to, the Amazon or Netflix strategy of releasing every single episode at once. It completely has disrupted how advertising is purchased and how it's delivered. Well,
and I mean, and now you're starting to see some of the bigger players create avenues for content creation and distribution directly to their platform. I mean, Facebook, right? They just did their immediate posting stuff. Today, Snapchat alluded to the fact that they were going to be getting rid of the necessity to hold your thumb on the phone to watch video, which will change the game for them in the video space, right? And they also just hired an ex-Fox network guy to come in and start working on their original content. I mean, who would have thought 3 years ago that Snapchat would be producing original television content? It's just an astronomical change of where we thought everything was headed. And while everyone from a consumer perspective has taken a U-turn, the rest of the companies are still headed straight down the path that they thought was built for them. And it's going to take them some time before they're able to turn it around.
It's an interesting thing about a semi-tangent about this. I was just reading an article on is YouTube, and obviously people having their own channels and are hugely viral. YouTube is still not profitable. Like, it's not going to be profitable until this year or next year. Sue Decker, who used to be an executive at at Yahoo just published a great article. I wish I could send it to every single one of you guys about how long it's taking new companies to become profitable. Not new, but like every single next generation of new startups is taking even longer and longer. And even YouTube, that generates billions of dollars in advertising, that is probably my #1 competitor and probably has been for several years. It's kind of a tangent, but it's just shocking to me.
Now, the explosion of content is really interesting, and I think it's similar to what happened with display, and all of a sudden you've got all this inventory, and pretty soon everyone in Hollywood is going to be able to be hired because there's the demand for directors and actors and the rest of it. But at the same time, everyone's ratings are going to come down, and it's going to become so fragmented that programmatic television is something that is going to probably be necessary. The question is, how much programmatic TV is happening. I mean, it was a huge buzz during the upfront this year, and I know there are challenges with linear television, but it seems like it's moving in that direction now. Do you want to address that, Joe?
Yeah, so I think programmatic TV is less than 3 to 5% of the budget today, so it's still small. I think it's not a question of if, but of when and how fast is it going to grow. I think the power of programmatic TV to really take this fragmented world of so much content on so many different devices, different form factors, and you don't quite have the opportunity to grab these ratings to really drive your CPM. So instead, you have to use data targeting to ensure that if you are a niche content producer, and you may only make content for the mobile phone, you need programmatic capabilities so that you can say, hey, this user who an hour earlier was watching Dancing with the Stars, and an hour later sitting in their bed on their tablet or their phone watching some sort of niche content, it's the same person. They still have the same buying power. They're still in market for a luxury automotive car. So BMW needs to reach that user on that prime time hour, and of course, a couple hours later, when they're on their phone in their bed watching some niche content that an advertiser in a year prior would never pay $1 for. So I think programmatic has the ability to democratize a lot of the niche content that's being fragmented today, and we're all watching more than we ever had before on our mobile phones. So programmatic, the ability for programmatic to deliver value to that user is going to be really important.
Gabrielle, how are you using programmatic? I mean, I guess my real question is, how do direct sales work with programmatic? How do you balance them out? Does one sort of undermine your higher CPMs, or do they work together pretty well?
I mean, we are a big believer in direct premium programmatic. We work with Rubicon as one of our partners. I think that there's a lot of advantages. I mean, I definitely foresee a future where, it could be that a majority of the media that Zynga or other publishers sell is coming through premium programmatic, and the high-touch integrations maybe is, executed by a direct sales team. I'm not really sure. I'm not obviously a fortune teller, but I think that some of the advantages that we see is, for clients, is obviously transparency. It's things like fraud. For Zynga, there's 0% chance for fraud because people either register through Facebook Connect or direct registration, or of course, Apple and Android registration when they download our apps. Viewability is 100% because it's in between turns inside a game experience. So, a lot of there's so much actually fear, I think, in the marketplace right now around viewability and fraud. Just recently I was having drinks with an executive, a VP from a major theatrical company, and she had a company that came in to present to her that basically helps police fraud for them, and scared her to death about that all of this inventory she was buying is not legit, essentially through networks. And so obviously programmatic completely changes the game for that. But then in terms of the ad seller, maybe they're a dying breed. We just saw how many people were laid off at AOL in the past year because so much of their business was coming from programmatic. But change with the times and be relevant is my point of view.
I think one of my colleagues, Jay Stevens, in our London office had said, you can't fire the fax machine. or blame the fax machine for a salesperson selling a deal at too low of a price. So you can't blame RTB or Programmatic for the publisher selling a deal at too low. You have the controls to enact any price or any rule or any decision that you want. So it's all about how you as a publisher have the leverage to price. You can't blame RTB for mispricing it.
Right, and I mean, there's different levels of inventory too. Like we can offer inventory through Programmatic that is premium, like non-skippable video or first impression takeovers that but they might still sell at a lower CPM as if a direct person sold them. But on the flip side, is the cost to execute less as well? So does it kind of even out anyway from the back end of the publisher?
Seems data is becoming really, really important. We're on the same page here. You know, content is king and data is queen. But it seems like both publishers and agencies are building the data stack. I mean, it's kind of a foot race to get as much data as possible. Curious to know what your agency is doing right now on the data front. Are they relying on everyone out there? Are they trying to develop their own first-party data? How is that working?
Yeah, I mean, I have the privilege of working for a very, very large holding company that pretty much handles a lot of that for us. And I think they've made their message extremely clear over the last couple of years, bringing Maxus more close to the chest, really going out there and looking for ways that we can begin leveraging data. And if you look at the universe of data, over 90% of it has been generated in just the past 2 years. And the majority of that is coming from mobile devices. And the overwhelming majority, it's not even close. And when we look at Programmatic, it only makes sense with the mobile platform because we're literally generating one-to-one data now. It's no longer a situation where you have to parcel out, did this come from him, did this come from her? We pretty much know who you are. And so leveraging that is going to be huge moving forward. And when we start to look at what's happening, not just with mobile devices, but mobility as a whole, with the Internet of Things, connected cities, we're going to get to a point where we are generating, I think the stat was, I don't even want to throw this out because I'm going to be way off. It's like 16 trillion terabits a month or something like that by 2018. Am I close on that?
I thought it was 25.
25, it might be. You know, if I have anything to say about it, it might be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's getting to a point where you can't not pay attention to it. You have to start taking advantage of it. I mean, wearables, it's all coming to a head where we're going to know so much about not just the people themselves, but how they move about the city. So it has implications that go past just the marketing world, right? And it's easy for us to get kind of head down and in our own little advertising and marketing bubble, but we're talking about big worldly implications about how we plan infrastructure for the future, right? Putting into place gigabit Wi-Fi within cities where you can be constantly connected to a Wi-Fi scenario where I can stream 4K content for an hour, right? If my plane is late, if my bus doesn't show, or maybe I just don't want to catch that bus because I'm in the middle of a great show, right? So it's so much that we have to pay attention now. And the only way to really parcel it all out is through Programmatic and RTV.
Well, there's so much of it. I think the challenge is structuring it and leveraging it, right? I mean, that is a huge challenge, and you guys are building out your own capabilities. What are the publishers doing right now in terms of data? You're doing the same thing, right? Yeah,
I mean, I think that obviously data is queen. I like that. And for companies, you know, there's the ability to access the data and then to actually activate the data for clients, and those are sort of two different things. So I think that's a challenge for a lot of people. I think that some perception might be that it's really easy to execute on that, and you know, it's not as easy as you would think to even do something as simple as like psychographic targeting for a campaign. But what's interesting is we recently hired a chief data scientist who was at eBay, and it was so interesting because just when she told me the story about when she was at eBay, and just through data and just through better informations and algorithms, you know, her group was able to generate billions and billions of more dollars of revenue by targeting the right person at the right time with the right bit of content. And like that information is super powerful, and it takes dedication of your resources to, you know, X number of engineers to make that happen. Obviously, in the, you know, in the case of Zynga, it's the same thing that we're going to be wanting to do. When are we monetizing the user? Is it through an in-game purchase, like I want to purchase soil for my farm in Farmville, or is it, are we going to get more revenue from this user by serving an ad? What ad? How, what, like we're looking at questions like, who are our video completers? How do we target our video completers more? Or at what, you know, what kind of ad do they like better even? Or are they responding more to? And then kind of collating that data and being able to actually activate it against campaigns.
Yeah, and it's even taking it one step further. We're having to add a fourth piece of the puzzle, right? It was always right person, right place, right time. But now we're having to look at receptivity, right? We're having to understand, where is this person, right? Are they at a bus stop? Are they in their bathroom? Are they at a mall, right? What type of mood are they in, right? Are they actively using their phone? Are they passively using it? We have to start understanding their receptivity level, because it can be very easy to put the appropriate ad in front of the appropriate person at the appropriate time in a certain context. But if that person's not ready to receive that message, you just wasted an impression. You just wasted a chance to really get your brand in front of someone and get an engagement or get a sale, because you just didn't pay attention to the little signs that were there. But we've never had to worry about those people, because we've always had someone like this, right? And now they're no longer doing that. We've got them all over the place. They're doing all kinds of things. I mean, they're using their phones for way too much. And I mean, look at what we've done now with Meerkat and Periscope. I mean, I don't need to watch you drive to work. I have to drive myself to work. That's enough for me, right? I don't need you to live stream your life. It's not EdTV. Pick something important and then live stream it. But I don't need to watch you go get tanned.
It's good, actually. So I've got one more question for you guys. We're going to wrap the panel up. But I'm just curious, if you had one wish that I could give you, fulfill for you, what would you wish for in terms of making your own businesses more successful?
I'll start. I think for us, it really comes down to truly understanding every audience on whatever device they are on. I think it's the holy grail of, you know, if I walk into a friend's house and we're watching TV and I happen to be the person who's in market for a luxury automotive, that TV commercial should change to target me as opposed to whatever the data is for that household. And so it's easier to do when I'm on my own personal device or I'm on my laptop. But for the TV, which has the incredible canvas of really delivering an ad that can really evoke emotion out of me, that's a loss from a personal perspective. And so that's the technology that's needed to put all that together and then tell a story across all those devices will help us grow our business and make sure that more value is created for the advertiser, more value for the publisher, and more value for the user.
I would say on the macro level, obviously it would make my life easier if the time spent on mobile was commensurate with the budget percent on a macro. And on a micro level, I would, of course, love my company to have a top 3 game in every major category by the end of the year.
I think that would make everyone's life better. I mean, for me, man, there's so much. I don't even know where to start.
Just I think get one.
Man, can I ask for $1 million? I think it's really starting to understand what makes a user valuable rather than understanding what makes inventory valuable. Because inventory that we deem valuable may not come with a valuable user on the other end for our brand. So it's really about understanding who that end person is and being able to make assumptions about the value of that impression based on that.
Love it. All right. Thank you so much, panelists. Really appreciate it. Give them a big applause. So we have lots of food and drink back there. We also have some gifts that you can take home with you. But we would love to have you guys stick around, obviously, and enjoy each other and enjoy the food and hang out a little bit. So thank you.